Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Transportation Policy and Finance, Transportation Finance and Policy Conference Committee for this Tuesday, May 14th. And our agenda for today is that we will be taking up some transportation provisions this morning. And then we will recess and take up some housing provisions in the afternoon and likely some additional transportation provisions as well. We have a quorum, and I'd like to now call on Chair Dibble for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members and public. I think you've seen the provisions for consideration for May 14th, 2024 list. We are going to hold off on item 6, pending a little more conversation with people who have some ideas around that. So I'm going to make a motion in order to place these provisions in front of us. Then staff will walk through and note where, well, just what's in the list and then what's going to be amended with amendments that are in front of us. My motion will be inclusive of all of the items on the list as amended. So here's my motion. I move adoption of provisions items 1 to 5 and 7 to 34 as amended where noted on the Transportation, Finance, and Policy provisions for considerations list dated May 13th, 2024 at 11:03 p.m. and also move that nonpartisan staff may make technical corrections as they deem necessary.
Thank you, Chair Dibble. So we have a motion before us. Representative Tadke.
Mr. Chair, I don't, oh, never mind, I just found it. It's in the pile.
Should have the.
Representative Nelson and I were having a hard time finding where we're at. But I'm good now, thank you.
Great. Now staff will.
Staff will do a walkthrough of the motion that is before us.
Mr. Chair and members, I will start off again. The document that's been distributed is the House File 5242 Conference Committee, Transportation, Finance, and Policy. The title is Provisions for Consideration 5/14/24. The date timestamp is May 13th at the bottom. Of note, just so that members of the committee are aware, this provisions list identifies a number of items that are found in Article 2 of both the House and Senate language. There are fiscal implications of some of these, so there's some spending and fiscal aspects that are implied, but the provisions list identifies policy with, as I understand it, the fiscal elements to be taken up at a later point more explicitly. So moving through the list, line 1 relates to electric assisted bicycles, and this is both House and Senate language. The proposed agreement would be to take the Senate sections in conjunction with an amendment, the A163, which involves some technical modifications, including clarifications around definition. The Senate language includes a youth operations study that was not in the House language. Line 2 is a House-only provision on direction for the Department of Transportation to establish rumble strips. This has an amendment as well that should be distributed or is in progress of being distributed to members and being posted. It is the HF5242 A124 amendment. And that amendment adds a notification requirement when new rumble strips are being installed so that adjacent residences have notice of the inclusion or project that involves rumble strips. Line number 3 is a House-only provision establishing a Gopher Gunners Memorial Bridge would be included. Line number 4 is a Senate-only provision that modifies a legislative report relating to MnDOT contracting requirements, so it broadens some of the requirements around that report. Line number 5 is both House and Senate language, and this relates to high voltage transmission lines, provides for explicit placement of the lines in the right-of-way, and has relocation costs and reimbursement requirements. The proposed agreement would include a mixture of House and Senate. It's largely to resolve technical differences. There's also an amendment in association with this language. It's the SCH 5242A191 amendment. And that amendment makes a modification to the window, narrowing it down to 4 years as a trigger for when relocation costs must be borne partially by the Department of Transportation. As mentioned earlier, line 6 is a hold, so that's not included in this motion. Line 7 is a Senate-only provision that makes some modifications on use of various funding streams that go to local units of government so that those dollars could be used for debt service on bonding that's otherwise authorized for the locals under general bonding authority laws. Line 8 makes a change in the length of time that a permit is valid on motor vehicles. There's a technical difference between House and Senate. This would pick up the House technical approach. Line 9 makes a modification to professional sports team philanthropy plates, renames the plate, and allows for allocation of some donated funds. That was a House-only provision. Moving to page 2 of the provisions list, line 10 is a Senate-only provision, and this provides authority for deputy registrars to handle some fleet vehicle transactions. Line 11 is found in both House and Senate language. The working proposed agreement would be to take the House approach to extend the deadline on title transfer applications to 20 calendar days. And then Mr. Greenfield will take the next provision, which is a Senate only.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, the item 12 on the provisions for consideration list is a Senate-only provision related to duplicate or replacement license plates for auto dealers. This modifies the auto dealer's access to replacement or duplicate plates and requires that they apply for a title upon applying for those plates. There is an A182 amendment that has been worked out between the agency and the auto dealers that has the same substantive requirements of removing the plates and applying for title upon applying for replacement plates, but places the requirements in the replacement plates chapter of law. So that is the substance of the 182. And then the second portion of the 182 is just the notification that a dealer must remove the plates upon holding a vehicle out for resale upon notification to the commissioners, which is consistent with the policy that's already in the Senate language. So that's the 182 amendment for item 12. Item 13 is a Senate-only provision pertaining to rulemaking for competitive bidding when a deputy registrar or driver's license agent closes their office location. Item 14 is the second portion of House and Senate language on active transportation. The working agreement is to take Senate Section 44 with an amendment on page 48, line 11. That's just a minor technical clarification change. And on Senate, in terms of the vulnerable road users, and then the other working agreement is to take Senate Sections 88 and 144A, which is a revisor instruction, and House Sections 23 and 29. Item 15 is the requirement that the Minnesota Council on Disability adopt a new disability parking space sign. Item 16 is the working agreement is to accept the Senate language in terms of the policy provisions, but like Mr. Burris referred to earlier, the fiscal components of this have not yet been identified, but will be addressed later. Item 17 is the is the authorization for motorcyclists to lane filter under certain traffic conditions. This includes the A172 amendment, which is a technical clarification that was drafted to kind of clean up the requirements of when lane filtering may occur, and also moves the requirement or prohibition that a motorist who is impeding a motorcyclist who's lane filtering into the driving rules chapter of statute rather than nestling it within the motorcycling operation statute, and then makes an additional conforming change to the headlight requirement for motorcycles. based on the technical change to the operation rules. Item 18 is the authorization for the designation of a temporary mailing address and codify certain definitions related to addresses. Item 19 is the repeal of the requirement that DVS administer fourth or subsequent knowledge exams. Item 20 is a clarification about the reintegration driver's license, which was enacted last year. Item 21 is a tribal worksite training program that will be taking Senate language related to training projects for trunk highway purposes. This is on the governor's transportation bill. Item 22 is the pavement life cycle analysis report amendment and a public comment period provision. There's an A170 amendment that is essentially portions of the Senate language, but just recreated as individual sections. Of note, in the Senate language, the review and collaboration methods are still part of the pavement life cycle analysis reporting process, and then also make certain modifications to the legislative report and kind of how the selection process that the commissioner must use as part of a pavement life cycle analysis, and that's part of the A170 amendment. Item 23 is a technical fix to the Safe Routes to Schools account in the Special Revenue Fund. Item 24 is an unnamed amendment that will be SCH 5242A192. Perhaps my colleague, Mr. Burris, or Mr. Lee can better explain the A192 amendment as it pertains to the passenger rail provisions with the Department of Transportation.
Mr. Chair and members, the A192 amendment is largely based on, well, it's sort of a combination of House and Senate language. It provides general authority to MnDOT to set the passenger rail related fees and provide for revenues. It identifies specific types of items for which the fees can be set under this general authority, and also sets percentage cap increases in fees year over year. Then moving to line 25, wayside detector systems. The proposal here would be to take the Senate language with an amendment. So that is a study. The amendment is SCH 5242A190, and that would push out the due date of the study to January 15th, 2026. Line 26 relates to hours of service and on-duty time for yard masters, and this would be the Senate language, primarily with a technical element coming from the House language on a definition. Line 27 is a Senate-only provision that makes a modification to motor vehicle lease sales tax revenue deposit. It's a technical modification regarding account, and then provides for a statutory appropriation. That's not shifting where the dollars actually flow as far as recipients. Line 28 is both House and Senate language on Met Council transition plans to zero emission buses. There's a technical difference. This would take the Senate language. It's technical regarding sort of structural on a reviser's instruction. Line 29 has an amendment, and this relates to bus rapid transit project scoping. And the amendment, the H5242A121, would narrow and modify some of the requirements around this. The narrowing includes identifying that the requirements go to arterial bus rapid transit. It also sets out the scoping requirements to apply to certain ADA facilities at intersections, identify pavement and transit signal prioritization requirements. And then the amendment also contains a local cost share element, so that 50% of the ADA infrastructure costs would be borne by the Met Council in the course of doing the project, and the other 50% would be borne by the road authority. Line 30 is a Senate-only provision and would be included. This makes modifications to certain Metro Transit vehicle and station cleanliness and repair standards and reporting requirements. Moving to page 5, line 31 makes modifications to authorization for deputy registrar enacted last year. broadening the services that could be provided so that the office could function as a full-service provider. That is in St. Paul. Line 32 directs a study on commercial driver shortages, so Senate only would be included. Line 33 provides direction to the Department of Public Safety on producing languages or producing materials in other languages beyond English. And then finally, line 34 would require a study to look at potential establishment of a standing committee that would review and approve license plate proposals for special plates. That, Mr. Chair, is the provisions list.
Thank you so much, Mr. Burris. Chair Dibble, did you have any comments? Otherwise, we can open it up for member questions.
No, I believe amendments are now in front of everyone, so pause for questions, comments, other amendments.
Members to the motion and to the staff presentation. Chair Nelson.
Mr. Chair, I believe the amendment, the motion is just lines 1 through 5 for right now that we're approving, or not the whole document that we read.
It's, Chair Nelson, it's 1 through 5 and then 7 through 34.
And then 7 through 34, okay.
And I also failed to mention at the beginning, I wanted to let folks know that Senator Kelly Morrison and Chair Port are online, and so I also invite their comments, and I believe Senator McEwen is as well, so they are welcome to participate, of course. Vice Chair Tapke.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull the A124 amendment on rumble strips for now. We're going to work with staff on, I thought more about our conversation yesterday. We're going to work on an exception for houses within 750 feet of an intersection. So if we could pull the A124 on rumble strips, I would appreciate it.
Okay, the A124 is withdrawn.
And then
I think I'll have to revise my motion.
Okay.
I'll take staff guidance on how to revise my motion.
Mr. Chair and members, so your motion would be move to adopt item 1 and then 3 to 4 and then, or so 3 to 5 and then 7 to 34. So you, rumble strips is item 2 on the chart.
All right, so Mr. Chair, I withdraw my motion and I will make a new motion. I move adoption of provisions 1, 3 to 5, and 7 to 34, as amended where noted, on the Transportation, Finance, and Policy Provisions for Considerations list dated May 13th, 2024, at 11:03 p.m., and also move that nonpartisan staff may make technical corrections as they deem necessary.
Okay. We have incorporated your request, Vice Chair Tapke,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
in the motion. Any questions or discussion? Okay. Any closing thoughts? I think we're
It's a good motion.
ready to
Vote for it.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed. The motion prevails. So we have adopted quite a few of our transportation provisions. We have a few more to go through, and we'll be reconvening later this afternoon to take those up, as well as housing provisions, my understanding. Chair Nelson, do you have anything additional that you would like to present to the committee either this morning or this afternoon?
Maybe this afternoon. There's the one, while we're going through housing, there's the one provision that the House language is in this house, is in the housing portion, the Senate language is in the labor bill, but they're identical provisions, and I think the staff earlier said that that should go into the labor portion of this bill, but we can discuss that this afternoon. It might be an appropriate time when we're doing the housing.
Okay. Chair Dibble, do you have a sense, I think we would be talking about maybe the early part of the afternoon? actually to reconvene? We don't have a set time.
Correct. So we'll have to play it by ear.
Yeah.
Even though we don't have session today, some of us have other conference committees, caucus, other standing committee obligations. But in between all of that, we'll be having conversations, we'll be meeting with our lead and our, the mighty Senator Limmer to incorporate their perspectives. If they've already put a lot of good ideas into this mix, and we appreciate our work together on that. So yeah, so we're gonna, and as well as the executive branch. So hopefully early afternoon,
Yeah.
I'll say mid-ish afternoon.
Mid-ish. Chair Howard, what is your sense and timeline of taking up your provision?
Chair Hornstein, we do have substantial agreement and have staff working on language. So early to mid-afternoon, I think, is around the time when we might be prepared to be ready, but don't have an exact time, depending on staff working on language and making sure we have adequate time for it to be public and whatnot.
Okay. So members, here's the plan then, given this information that I've received. We'll take up the housing provisions first in the mid-afternoon, and then we'll likely have some additional transportation provisions. And if there's, I know there's at least one labor item that we're going to vote on as well. And so we'll give you a minimum of a half-hour notice, but hopefully around an hour before we reconvene. And I think I'm just going to say, based on what I've heard, other members say approximately 2 o'clock, but, that's fluid this time of year. But again, we're going to be in recess, and we are going to be meeting again in the afternoon. So if there's no other items or business, we are in recess.